Welcome back to Financial Therapy. It's not just about the money. I'm personal financial planner, columnist, and financial therapist Rick Kahler. Research tells us that 90% of all financial decisions are made emotionally, not logically. For nearly 4 decades, I've been helping people make better money decisions. So what makes my financial worldview different from most financial experts? I blend the nuts and bolts of financial advice with the emotions that drive making them. Good money decisions are not just about the money. So let's get started with today's episode. Welcome to another edition. I thought I'd talk about something this time that pops up into my inbox quite often. And some time ago, I don't know how long ago, 6 months, a year ago, I subscribed to a online forum called Quora. Recently, I did a segment for the South Dakota Public Broadcasting, and I made mention of this, that I had subscribed to Reddit. And to me, they all kind of seem to be the same, but I misspoke. And I was curious, well, what's the difference between Quora and Reddit? And I found out that Reddit is more community-focused, has a diverse range of content, and has a lot of autonomous or anonymous people posting, where Quora is centered around knowledge sharing with a focus on detailed, expert answers and real name identities. So no wonder I signed up for Quora. And I think that's a fascinating background to go into today's topic, because Quora is the sophisticated, the intelligent, the more the one that you can rely on for expert advice. And I signed up for a financial track or retirement track or something like that. And I think several months ago, I actually made some replies in this. Well, what I have discovered that online forums and even Quora can be dangerous to your financial health. I looked in on one of these threads not too long ago, where a member asked a question about whether he should take Social Security at age 62 or wait until age 70. Now, this is a pretty ubiquitous comment. I get that comment all the time from clients and friends and associates. I mean, that's a question you could be asked waiting in line for something if you strike up a conversation with somebody and they know you're a financial advisor. And I think of any financial advisor that is a professional, has professional training, will admit that question, just framed, should I take Social Security at 62 or wait until 70, is completely unanswerable without significantly more information. It's kind of like saying, do you think my headache is muscular or cancer, to a doctor? You've got to have more information. So it was interesting on this forum of sophistication and transparency and expertise, that the lack of context around this question didn't stop a plethora of readers from offering their opinions. The question was very simple. Unfortunately, so were the answers. Now, Social Security is anything but simple. It's anything but straightforward. It is inherently complex. It is as complex as distributions from an IRA. The funny thing is there's one IRA called a simple IRA for small businesses. And as you might guess, it's anything but simple. So my point on this is, in a knowledgeable forum that would be rife with true expertise, the responses to the question would not be answers. They would be questions. Tell me more about so many things. But the last time I looked, which was many months ago, I think he had received over 1,400 responses. And while I was not able to read all 1,400, I was able to scan a number of them. And I'm trying to remember if I saw a question. There has to have been one, right? But so what really took me is that most of the comments completely avoided the financial aspect of retiring at 62. It was as if the money, as if the finances, and I do believe inherent in the question was a financial wondering, is it best financially for me to take Social Security at 62 or 70? It was as if the money was a non-issue entirely. And what I gathered from reading a lot of those responses is that the main sentiment of the readers was just to get out of their job and into retirement as soon as possible, without regard to financial sacrifices or financial realities. I don't know how many of those we're looking at age 62 as this is, I've lost my job, or I've got to get out of my job for health reasons and I have no option but to take Social Security. They were heavily skewed toward, I have options, I just cannot wait to leave and start getting some support from another area other than me working. So that was rife with all sorts of money scripts as to what's going on there, what it would be blocking the person from considering another job. There's just a ton of questions that could be asked with somebody that has a part of themselves that is saying, I've got to take the money, I've got to take it now. Getting out of this job is more important than considering any financial consequences or financial pros and cons of what I'm doing. Others took the opinion that by not taking the money at 62, you were leaving free money on the table. And that if you waited until after 62 to take the money, maybe you're a little insane. That's just crazy. Now, there were so many comments to choose from. A few of them that just caught my eye was one person said, tomorrow isn't promised to us. Take the money now. Tomorrow isn't promised. Well, that's true. Is that true enough to take the money? What does that mean? That, of course, tomorrow isn't promised. That logically has no bearing on the Social Security decision, logically. Another one said a reason to collect earlier is that no one knows how many years they have left. Kind of the same. But again, many people agreed with that. Another one said life is a crap. Chewed. They meant shot. You gotta count your money and you gotta make a decision regarding how long you think you will live. Well, there's actually more wisdom in this than it might first appear. I mean, it's true that part of the decision to take your money early has to do with how long do you think you will live. And it's not so much how long do those emotional parts of you that fear dying soon think you will live. It would be more skewed or more appropriate to say how long do the statistics, how long does the data, how long do the facts say I will live. I don't think this is probably exactly what this person meant. Then there were even a few that were more specific. Many estimated that the break-even age, that's the age that the amount you would take at one age, say 62, would equal the same amount that, say, if you started at 67 or 70. It's called the break-even age. And one estimated it was around 80 when determining if you should take your benefits at 62 or waiting to 70. Now, finally, we ran into a little bit of logic. This person wasn't far off with their estimate of 80 being the break-even age. There is kind of one, putting the break-even age at 1 would have to meld the differences between taking 62, 67 or all the other ages into 1, and you could do that. And it's probably close. Generally speaking, the break-even age, if you start at 62, is actually around 78. And if you're starting at age 67 or 70, it's actually around 82. So you put those together, maybe the average break-even age might be 81-ish, somewhere in there. So pretty close. Very clearly, most of those posting had great skepticism that they would make it to their break-even age. And while these were posters on a specific forum, it could be skewed, that people on this forum maybe aren't as knowledgeable as the general public, or maybe the opposite, or maybe there's no difference in it. Personally, I see really no difference, that this is the view of the mainstream. Using a rule of thumb that you will die before your break-even age has a high probability of being wrong, unless you have a current terminal diagnosis, or you've taken something like realage.com, I think that's still around, that, well, it wouldn't be Real Age. It would be live to 100, live to100.com. I know it's still around. That would give you an estimate of potentially when you would die. And I have had clients come in their early 80s for an estimate of when they die. Maybe they're overweight, heart problems, lung issues, or whatever it might be. So there is somewhat of a scientific guess that a person can use to see when statistically would be the assumption when a person would die. Now, of course, you can't account for accidents and terrible things that happen. So I want to say that there is a grain of truth that if you die before the break-even age, you're better off financially having taken your Social Security early. No question. That is true. We just have to do the calculations to figure out what are our chances of living past the break-even age. Now, I looked for some statistics on when people take Social Security. I got some variation, but not a huge amount. The statistics I found showed that people typically wait until age 70 that 4 to 8% of people typically wait until 70 to collect their benefits. Pretty small amount. Most people take their Social Security at age 62. Obviously up through and before age 70. So that would represent 92 to 96% of people. Some of those people, of necessity, have to take Social Security. I'm going to guess most of them don't. And those that don't, the people on this forum that say take it at 62 because you're leaving money on the table are betting that they're not going to make it to age 78. Well, most of them are going to lose their bet. Because even though the break-even age is 78, that's not the mortality age. The mortality age, the average age at which they will die, is 85, according to Social Security. This means a 62-year-old has only a 43% chance of dying before the break-even age of 78. Now, clearly, some of them will. But when a person is making a financial decision and there is an unknown variable, we need to look at probability. And the probability in this case is 57% chance that the person's going to live longer than 78. And life expectancy is even higher for those that take their Social Security at 67 and 70, topping out at 88 for somebody that's 70 years old. So just to wrap this up, those who take Social Security benefits early without a terminal or a significant underlying health concern are going to leave retirement income on the table, which is exactly what they don't want to do. Exactly why they decided to take their Social Security early. And they're going to miss out on the additional income exactly at a time in their life when they're going to need it most. All right. So that's the financial part of financial therapy today. What's the therapeutic part? Why do people significantly underestimate how long they will live? Why don't they consider their lifespan? Why do they consistently underestimate how long they are going to live? Well, we can turn to our friends' cognitive biases, which we've talked about a lot about in the podcast, and all the emotions that are involved behind these biases. For example, one is called availability heuristic. Okay, this is a mental shortcut where people rely on immediate examples that come to mind when evaluating a specific topic or decision. So, an untimely death of a family member, spouse, partner, friend, an acquaintance, or maybe the very dramatic media coverage of a premature death of a public figure or a celebrity are way more emotionally impactful to us than the uneventful deaths of somebody in their 80s or their 90s or in their 100s that are more, quote, reasonable. And you might remember we've talked about in budgeting, it's the emotional decision, the one that has the biggest emotional juice that our brain will typically act on. So if it comes to what should I do with my $10,000, put it in a 401k plan or put it toward a beach vacation, for 70% of people, it's the beach vacation that gets the juice. For 30% of people, the brain says, wow, if we put it here, we'll have extended beach vacations, and that's what gets the juice. So it's kind of the same thing here. People just overestimate the likelihood of dying young because of the dramatic cases that they can readily recall. Another one is optimism bias or pessimism bias, the tendency to believe that positive outcomes are more likely for yourself than others. That's optimism. Pessimism can lead individuals to really adopt a pretty bleak view of their health and longevity. Kind of as my wife says, such people with pessimism bias go to the dark side almost involuntarily. Well, she should know that because she lives with one, me. Now, of course, I'm not a pessimist. I am a realist, right? So just personal experience and family health histories. When your father died, when your mother died, when your uncle died, often contribute to a belief that one will not live as long as the statistical averages suggest. Now, there's a grain of truth in this, especially if it's hereditary, especially if you've done some gene workup. I forget the specific name for that. You've had your genes analyzed, and you have specific markers, specific genes that would show you are open to a certain illness. Even when you have one of these markers, in many cases, it means instead of being 2% open to it, you're 6% or 8%, which is 3 or 4 times more likely to have it. But oftentimes isn't the huge probability that our brains make it out to be. Another one is present bias, or it's called temporal discounting. It's the tendency to give stronger weight to payoffs that are closer to the present time than the future. So this bias can make the immediate financial relief from taking benefits at 62 when you are 61, let's say, seem way more attractive than delaying them until age 70. So this present bias can explain why a lot of people prefer the certainty of smaller payments now than waiting for larger payments later. I think there is even something done around this with young kids and chocolate cake or cookies. where they say, you can have one cookie now, or you can have 3 cookies an hour from now. And almost inevitably, the kid takes the cookie now. Anchoring effect is the human tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information encountered. That's the anchor. If an individual hears that 62 is the early eligibility age for Social Security benefits, which it is, they may anchor to 62 as the appropriate time to retire or start collecting benefits. And that's really without gathering more information or considering the financial benefits of waiting. I think anchoring was evidence in spades on the Quora forum. When a person anchors, it becomes really difficult to pull up the anchor and adjust the plans based on new information. Which is the fact 57% of people are going to live beyond the break-even age. Finally, the status quo bias can play in here, and that's just a preference for the current state of affairs where a change is perceived as a loss. So if a person thinks the ideal retirement age is 62, when Social Security benefits begin, the idea of, maybe this isn't a good time to take it, maybe I should work beyond 62 and let those benefits rack up, often runs into resistance because that is not the plan that I made. Now, inherent in all of these biases are the emotions that anchor them in place. The fear of being wrong, the fear of changing, I think it is huge. I think that's behind a lot of these biases. Is, wow, what does it mean to be wrong? Whoops. I need to reconsider this all my life, all these years, all this whatever fill in the blank time. I have had bad information. What does that mean about me? What are the stories that come up? I'm a failure. See, I am stupid. I have made some really poor decisions if that is true. And so there are protectors in IFS speak, step in and double down and say, no, we are not going to accept that information, and we're going to, in doing so, protect that exiled part of us, that vulnerable part of us that would just be devastated if this wasn't true. And usually where that comes in, where that belief initially formed, is usually early in our history when we were kids. So I guess the bottom line of this podcast that I want to underscore is that underestimating your life expectancy can have significant negative financial implications, and it can result in the opposite of what most people are trying to accomplish when they take Social Security early, which is making sure that they get everything possible from their hard-earned Social Security benefit. As we know on this podcast, it's not just about the money decision, is it? My final tip: read the Quora financial forums for entertainment, not advice. Okay, thanks for listening. Looking forward to talking with you next week. Take care. Thanks for joining me, Rick Kahler, for another episode of Financial Therapy. It's not just about the money. This is where I combine the nuts and bolts of financial advice with the emotions that drive making them. Remember, every financial behavior, whether it appears illogical to you or others, makes perfect sense when we understand the underlying beliefs, feelings, and thoughts. Sign up for my weekly blog at financialawakenings.com. I hope you'll join me again for our next episode.